Denial Martinez had always prided himself on being adaptable. As a xenobiologist aboard the UES Horizon, he'd studied dozens of alien species across 3 star systems. But nothing had prepared him for standing before Queen Vexithera of the Zephyrian Empire, her crystalline form towering 12 feet above him in the throne room of her orbital palace. Human. The Queen's voice resonated through his translation implant like wind chimes in a hurricane. You will remain here as my daughters. Companion. Denial's jaw dropped. Your Majesty, with all due respect, I'm here on a diplomatic mission. The Earth Alliance will receive their diplomat back when I am satisfied with the arrangement. 6 of her arm-like appendages gestured dismissively, each one refracting light into prismatic patterns. My daughter Hazel has been difficult since the last cultural exchange ended poorly. Perhaps a human perspective will prove illuminating. Before Denial could protest further, the massive doors behind him sealed with a crystalline click that sounded suspiciously final. Princess Hazal was not what Denial expected. Unlike her mother's imposing crystalline majesty, she appeared almost human-sized, though her skin held the same translucent quality that marked all Zephyrians. She sat in what he assumed was her private quarters, a vast chamber filled with floating geometric shapes that pulsed with soft bioluminescence. So you're the human they've assigned to babysit me, she said without looking up from a complex, holographic display showing star charts. Her voice was younger than her mother's but carried the same harmonic quality. I'm Denial Martinez, xenobiologist and cultural attaché, he replied, trying to maintain professional composure. And I believe there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not here to babysit anyone. Hazel finally turned to face him, and Denial was struck by her eyes, deep violet orbs that seemed to hold the depth of nebulae. My mother thinks exposure to your kind will make me more suitable for diplomatic relations. She doesn't understand that I've already learned everything I need to know about humans. Oh, and what's that? You're impulsive, short-lived, and utterly predictable. She waved her hand, and the star charts shifted to show Earth's solar system. Your species has existed for maybe 200,000 years. We Zephyrians have been traveling between stars for over 50 million. What could you possibly teach me? Denial studied the princess for a moment, noting the way her crystalline features dimmed slightly when she spoke, a sign of emotional distress he'd learned to recognize in her species. You know what I think? Enlighten me. I think you're afraid. The bioluminescent patterns around the room flared brighter, and Hazal's form seemed to sharpen. Excuse me? You're afraid that despite all your advanced technology and millions of years of civilization, we short-lived humans might actually have something you don't. Denial took a step closer. Otherwise, why would your mother be so concerned about your diplomatic skills? Why would the last cultural exchange have ended poorly? For a moment, silence stretched between them like the void between stars. Then, Hazal laughed, a sound like crystal bells mixed with solar wind. You're either very brave or very stupid, human. Both, usually. It's served me well so far. Over the following weeks, what began as reluctant coexistence evolved into something neither had expected. Hazel showed Denial the wonders of Zephyrian technology, ships that sailed on solar winds, cities that existed in folded space, art forms that painted with gravity itself. In return, Denial shared humanity's greatest gift, the ability to find beauty and meaning in impermanence. This is ridiculous, Hazal muttered, as Denial taught her to play chess using pieces carved from asteroid minerals. It's completely random. There's no guarantee the better strategist will win. That's exactly the point, Denial replied, moving his knight. Life isn't about guarantees. It's about making the best decisions you can with incomplete information, and then adapting when things go wrong. But why would you build a game around such chaos? Because chaos is where growth happens. Your people have had 50 million years to perfect everything. When was the last time a Zephyrian invented something truly revolutionary? When did someone surprise you? Hazel paused, her hand hovering over a crystalline pawn. You're suggesting That our longevity limits us? I'm suggesting that knowing you only have 70 or 80 years makes every moment matter more. It makes you take risks. It makes you love harder, dream bigger, and fight for things that might be impossible. She made her move. Not the logical choice, but a bold sacrifice that opened up entirely new possibilities on the board. Like this? Exactly like that. The breakthrough came during their third week together. Hazal had been struggling with a diplomatic protocol simulation, a negotiation scenario between the Zephyrian Empire and a younger species called the Mordani. Every approach she tried followed traditional diplomatic patterns, and everyone failed. "I don't understand," she said, her frustration causing the very air around her to shimmer. "I'm offering them everything they could want: technology, protection, resources. Why do they keep refusing?" Denial studied the simulation data. The Mordani were a proud warrior culture, barely 2,000 years old but fiercely independent. What if they don't want to be given everything? What if they want to earn it? That's inefficient. Maybe, but it's also human. Denial grinned. "Try offering them a challenge instead of a gift. Make them prove they're worthy partners rather than subjects to be protected." Hazal reset the simulation and tried a completely different approach. One that acknowledged the Mordani's pride and offered them a chance to demonstrate their strength as equals rather than dependents. The simulation ended with a successful alliance within hours. "How did you know?" she asked, staring at the success metrics in amazement. "Because that's what humanity would want. We'd rather fail trying to stand on our own than succeed by being handed everything." Denial shrugged. "Sometimes the best diplomatic tool is understanding that not everyone wants to be saved." When Queen Vexithara finally summoned them both back to the throne room, Denial could see the change in Hazal immediately. She stood straighter, spoke with more confidence, and most importantly, asked questions instead of simply reciting memorized protocols. "Mother, I've learned something important," Hazal said. "Diplomacy isn't about applying perfect solutions to every situation. It's about understanding that every species, every individual, sees the universe differently. The goal isn't to make them see it our way, but to find where our different perspectives can work together." The Queen's crystalline form seemed to pulse with approval. "And you learned this from the human?" "I learned it by working with the human," Hazal corrected. "Denial didn't give me the answers. He helped me find them myself." Queen Vexithara turned her attention to Denial. "And you, human? What has this experience taught you?" Denial thought for a moment before answering. "That sometimes the greatest strength isn't in what you know, but in what you're willing to learn. Your daughter didn't need to be taught, she needed to be challenged, and in challenging her, I learned more about both our species than years of formal study could have taught me." The Queen was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of something Denial had never heard from a Zephyrian before: genuine surprise. "Perhaps," she said slowly, 50 million years of civilization has made us forget the value of uncertainty." 6 months later, Denial found himself back on the horizon, but not as the same man who had left. His reports on Zephyrian culture had revolutionized xenodiplomacy protocols, emphasizing adaptation and mutual growth over rigid procedural adherence. He still corresponded regularly with Hazal, who had become one of the Empire's most successful cultural attachés. Her latest message had made him smile. "Denial, you'll be pleased to know I just completed my first negotiation with a species even more stubborn than humans, the Kovari Collective. Your advice about leading with curiosity instead of certainty saved the day. Mother says I'm becoming unpredictably effective. I think she means it as a compliment." As Denial gazed out at the stars streaming past his viewport, he reflected on how a forced arrangement had become something transformative for both their species. Humanity's gift had never been superior technology or ancient wisdom. It had been the willingness to grow, to change, and to see every challenge as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. Sometimes, he mused, the best way to prove humanity's worth wasn't through displays of strength or intelligence, but simply by being authentically, adaptably, impossibly human. And sometimes that was more than enough.